So yes, I was called by Pastor Jeff and asked to continue where last week Ernie left off, talking about speaking about courageous part of becoming courageous community. That was a tough act to follow for those of you who saw it. You did a wonderful job. So today I'm speaking to the community portion of that statement. And first I'd like to share a little bit about how I came to this community of Good Shepherd. Some of you have heard it. It's not a real exciting story, so hang in there. And that's a good thing probably that it's not real exciting. So after completing school in Minnesota, college in Minnesota, I ended up in Fargo, North Dakota at a job. And yes, it is as cold as everybody says. I spent a little time there, and then I ended up taking a job in St. Louis, Missouri, and spent about 11 years there. Following that, I went to live outside of Chicago area for a number of years. And then about 27 years ago, I ended up here in the Boston area. I retired about 3.5 years ago, which I highly recommend to those of you who can take. Highly recommend it. And I guess the one thing that with the message is that in most of that time going from Fargo to St. Louis to Chicago to here, until about a dozen years ago, I always thought of my little church in my little very small town in Minnesota as my church. And for whatever reason, I really never went to service on a regular basis or much at all. And it was because that was my home church. It was probably the wrong thing, but that was my feeling. And I always thought, well, when I grow up and get settled, maybe then I'll find another church and go there. Well, in my late 50s, I'm thinking, maybe I'm starting to grow up and starting to get settled. And so I had things going on in my life at that time as well, and I decided to come back to church, and I came here. And the only reason I came here, honestly, to begin with, was because I drive by here a lot and see the church and Lutheran church, and so let's go ahead and try that out. Well, I attended a few Sundays, and I remember one of my first Sundays sitting over here on the left, which doesn't seem to be the prime place. We're right side people, I guess, is what it amounts to. But I remember sitting over here and listening to both the choir and that fantastic pipe organ and how awesome they are. I thought there must be like 50 people in this choir because this is really blasting out. And I looked, and as you know, there was not 50 there. I don't know how many exactly, but there was not 50. I even thought maybe I'd sit on the right next time because that's pretty loud sitting over here. So, so I attended a few Sundays, and things that impressed me, I guess, that probably kept me coming back, were that one of those first Sundays, and I still remember Verl and Darlene coming up and saying hi, introducing themselves, and being friendly in that way. I was very impressed. I also remember sitting in the pew, and it was like right over there, in fact, with Pastor Bain was here, and it was like, she seems to be looking at me. I don't know what it is, but she seems to be singling me out for, that's the way I felt. I also remember that about that time, Brad McCrae and Jochen Salem gave some talks here on evolution, for those of you who've been around. And it's an interesting topic of mine. Sometime we can talk. I don't believe in what the specific scientific thing is today. I believe in natural selection, but I'm kind of doing the math in my mind, and just happens doesn't seem to fit the math. So we can have that some other time. But all these things really made that difference, and I guess screamed of community. And it's been rewarding, and I thank you all for welcoming me here. and being part of this. So I went from not attending regularly to dressing in these fancy clothes with the nice accessories, and so it's good. But here's one thing I think about on occasionally in a fair amount of time. We all know people who go to church all the time. We know people who say they are religious, but don't go to church, don't really, quote, believe in church. And we know people who are downright agnostic and claim that, and well, at least they're being honest. But at some point in time, most of those people will need the church in some way or another. It might be for a crisis such as funerals, family issues, homelessness even, things like that. It may be for very joyous times, weddings, baptisms, etc. But at some time, they may very much need that. For some reason, that saying popped into my mind, there are no atheists in foxholes. And so when people tell me they don't believe at all or whatever, okay, gotcha, but we'll see. And so I like the idea that when that time arrives, as it did for me, this church, this community is here to accept them and make a difference in their lives. And of course that takes a lot of effort. I've been on the council for many years, and one of the things I've learned is there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make this thing work so we can sit here for a couple hours on Sunday morning. So thank you for all that. Obviously it takes financial to support, but the fact that we are here when those people need us, the last shall be the first, I think is one of the sayings, is very, very important. So anyway, that's one of many good reasons why it's so important to keep Good Shepherd viable and a courageous community. And I treasure my relationship I've built with all of you here in this community. So thank you.